That's not old, just a pro to give the second vote of thanks.
It sounds very formal to be seconding that, and the only formal thing I'm going to say is that it's a pleasure to second it, Yvonne. And the idea that it was a live show, a perfect tribute to John, who was the epitome of the live and the spontaneous. Speaking of seconds, this is, in recent times, my second opportunity to stand in this great room, recently to remember the old Theatre Royal. And I'm happy to remember it again. In fact, I'm forced to remember it again tonight because it was in that year of 1962 that I actually met and worked with John for the first time. You're supposed to say you haven't changed. Absolutely. But we worked many occasions since, and I got to know and like him very, very well. When Madame Cogley was mentioned, I was reminded to think that perhaps there's so many young people coming into the business at the moment, laden with confidence and in awe of nobody. They bring their own personal genre, unlike myself, who at the time was in awe of everybody, including the fact I'm quite sure that even the theatre cat knew more than I did. In retrospect, I am delighted about that because I missed nothing, not least of all some of the genius of John, because I was a very keen photographer at the time, and I managed to get a few sneaky shots from the wings of the Theatre Royal, which I presented to the archives here when we did the Theatre Royal Remembering Night. And they were great, but I had lots with John from time to time. We had a great opportunity in 1969, it was, to have play, which I did at the invitation of RTE, The Life of Percy French, in a wonderful production called The Last Troubadour, in which John played the mischievous Phil the Fluter, of the famous Phil the Fluter's Ball. But I want to recount a story to you, and I want to dedicate it to Yvonne for presenting us with this wonderful evening tonight, because it depicts John perfectly. One of the things I learned from John, and I've never forgotten it, and to this day I do it, half out of instinct, and B, because I remember the advice I got from John. And it was that when he was not working in the theatre, when he wasn't specifically engaged in anything too hectic, he would go to work. By that he meant that he would take his notebook and his pencil, he would go into cafes, restaurants, buses and pubs, and keep the ears open. Now, we do that instinctively, because the kind of natural wit that John specialized in is all around us. We take it for granted, most of us do, but we don't. We pick it all up. But it's there. He recounted this story to me, and I'm going to recount it to you to illustrate exactly what I meant, what I mean, and why to this day I never ever travel without that notebook, either physically or spiritually. And he was in a bus going to Ballyfermot, working. And he became aware that there was two middle-aged women, salt of the earth, tough Dublin women, directly behind him. And they were backbiting a neighbour of theirs who had just, devouring this woman for just giving birth 15th child. And the conversation went like this, and I'm recounting it as he told it. 15? Yep. I know, Jesus, that's gone too far. 15, that's too many now. She had to put a stop in it, that's too far. That's too many. But when she digested this information, she said to a friend, well, what did she call it anyway? Hazel. Said, oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, not Hazel. Ah, no, not Hazel. Not Hazel. I mean, all the beautiful names of the saints, and she has to go and name it after a shag and nut. John said he never ever came home without a gem or two that he would filter into his performances in somewhere, and that is a typical example. I dedicate it to you, and I thank you for saluting it in the only way possible, this long overdue salute to the great John.
Thanks and congratulations to Yvonne and Lizzie, and celebrations will continue adjoining room. Thank you for coming.
We're going back next Thursday. I would stay in time, but we were going to, I was going to sit down and sit down. I had foot surgery. I sometimes, anyway, we were thinking that we would go down to Toronto, but I mean, I would love, it was honors. I'm not we were going to go tomorrow, but we're going to go a little bit the day. In Allentown. Ronnie loved it. Oh. Yeah. Is it growing up?
I'm sorry,
I have done, yeah, but it's been a bit of a mess. I gotta go back to it.
Yeah. You have to ask them. What are they called?
I know. Then it was here in open evidence, it's asleep. In addition to that, just
No, I love Yvonne Chester Way. I love Yvonne. Passed away in 99. And it was the same father. They died I know. I was very much.
Imagine it. Anyway.